Let's see if we can get you rolling on this new machine. This is the Brother XM2701. Really great little machine. So first let's talk about what all's in the box, or what all comes with the machine. The sewing machine. The accessories that come with it are, this is a buttonhole foot. And most of these feet, they're pretty much self-explanatory. That one makes buttons. This is a zipper foot, and you would use it if you wanted to apply a zipper. This is a darning plate if you need to fix a hole or whatever, and it fits under here. This little foot with the M on it and the little blue part, this is actually a button foot. You can actually just sew the buttons on with the machine. You have a few bobbins. These are class 15s. There's only a few different kinds of bobbins, but you do need to make sure that you use the correct one. So these are the class 15, and you can pick these up anywhere if you want extras. Let's see what else we got. We got a package of extra sewing needles. This strange little thing is a screwdriver. Okay, it's a little oval thing, and there are screws under here and under your needle that you will use this to untighten or tighten back up. So that's a screwdriver. This interesting foot is beautiful. It's a rolled hem or a narrow hem foot. When you see things that have those tiny, tiny little hems around it, that's what's used for this. It's really cool. This is a blind hem foot. It helps you do hems that are a little bit bigger than that, and so that you can't see them from the outside. It's a blind hemmer. Now, these two things go together. This is an extra spool pin, and this is a twin needle. If you've ever seen on t-shirts or things like that where it has two rows of stitching right close together, this is what's used, and you have to have two threads going through the needles. So that's why you need an extra spool pin. And the spool pin just fits on top of this part right here when you need it. And I'm going to do separate videos on all these different feet so you can see what they do. But for right now, I just want to show you what's in the box. You have a foot pedal. This is what gives it gas. You have your operation manual. Very handy. Information, that's where it tells you the bobbins are class 15s. Warranty. Other accessories. There's a lot of other feet and plates that you can get to go with this machine when you want to expand what you're doing. You have a quick start guide if you're in a hurry, and a DVD, instructional DVD. Okay? So let's get started now. Let's talk about the actual parts of the machine. You really need to know these, because when someone's trying to instruct you and they tell you to raise the presser foot lever, you need to know what they're talking about. Okay, so let's close in a little bit and see if I can show you where all these parts and what their names are. Okay, I think you're at a little better vantage point now to see these parts, so let's just go over the names of them. This is your Bobbin Winding Center here. This is the bobbin winder, or called the bobbin winder. This is your bobbin pin. Over here is going to be the bobbin compartment. This is where your bobbin goes. And this top plate, you just slide it backwards, press down just a little bit and slide it backwards, and it will come right out. Okay, and you'll just put your bobbin in there. So this is the bobbin compartment. Now, this is your spool, your thread spool pin. It goes down for storage and pulls up when you're using it. This is a vertical spool pin. Some machines have a horizontal pin, and we'll talk about the differences in those in a little bit later on. You have thread guides all along here. This is where your thread is going to go. All these guides keep your thread at the proper place and the right tension. Now, a take-up lever. It's this lever right back here. Oops, because I didn't have that put in well. Let me snap this back in. Now, this is your take-up lever. It raises and lowers this presser foot. Okay. And this foot that's on it is the zigzag foot, the J foot, or the all-purpose foot. This one comes on your machine. But you can raise it and lower it with this lever right behind here. Okay, you have a needle threader right here. You can actually thread your needle without having to keep stabbing at the eye. You pull down on the lever and then you push it back. Okay, it's a down and then back. And what happens is there's a little tiny hook right here. Maybe a little bit closer on that. Okay, when you go down and forward, there's a little tiny hook right in here, and it shoves it through the eye of the needle. Then you pull your thread across here and get it in the hook, and then when you let this thing go, it pulls the thread right through the eye of the needle. Pretty handy, huh? Okay, let me get back out now. This, as I said, is the presser foot. You have your needle plate right here, and let me tilt you up here. If you look closely, you can see there are little lines along here, and they all have a fraction right beside them. 3/8, 1/2, 3/4. This is your seam allowance guide. If you put a piece of fabric under here and you line the edge up with just say the 1/2 line, which would be right there, the edge of my fabric would be right along that line, then that means there's 1/2 inch between this line and your center needle position. So if your pattern tells you that you need a 1/2 inch seam allowance or a 5/8 or a 1/4, all you have to do is line the edge of the fabric up right along that line. And it even goes out along here to 1 inch, 2 inch, whatever, okay? So this helps you keep your seam allowances straight. Okay, the needle cutter is right here. If you, here's some thread, just cuts your thread right off. When you pull your fabric out, you can just come up and around and run it right across this, and it cuts your thread. And that may seem unimportant at this time, but it is really handy when you can't find your scissors real quick. Okay, let's look at all these knobs and buttons on the top. This first thing is your stitch length dial. This is your stitch width dial. Now this is the difference between length and width. The length on a straight stitch would be how long each stitch is. This would be a short length and this would be a longer length. Now if you're doing a zigzag stitch, which is up and down, your length would be the distance between the stitches. These would be really close together on a short length, and on a long length they would be further apart, wider apart. Now your stitch width on the zigzag would be how wide the exact stitch is. So you're going to get little tiny stitches this way. A longer width would be this way. This width dial, if you look up here on the top, these are your needle positions. Now, for the most part, we're going to use this center needle position. This little flat part right here will show you, and the middle one is the center position. There are times when you will want to move your needle to the inside position or to the outside, but we'll talk about those later. And this all-important dial is your thread tension. Start off with it at 4. If you'll notice on this dial, there's a line between the 5, the 4, and the 3. That means that's your optimal range. Now you can go looser, and you can go tighter. And we'll see when to adjust those later. But for now, we're going to leave that on a 4. Okay. You have a pattern selector right here. This machine has 27 different stitch patterns. Pretty cool. If you notice, there's black numbers on the outside of the dial and there's these purple numbers on the inside. When you look up here at your chart, stitches 1 through 14 are black. So those are going to be these outside numbers. Stitches 15 through 27 are purple, so those are going to be these inside numbers. So how do you get to the inside number? Well, you see that little purple SS right there. If you look up here, it says SS with an arrow to the left. So if you take this stitch length dial and you keep going all the way around, you see an SS. So when you want to use stitches 15 through 27, you're going to take this dial and set it to SS, and then you just turn this to whatever number you want. Okay? Now, we are going to use stitch number 2 for right now, which is just a straight stitch. So I'm going to turn this right back where it was to in between 2, 3, somewhere in there. It's not that big a deal. And make sure that this is on number 2. Now, your reverse stitch selector is this right here. When you pull it down, your machine sews in reverse. When you leave it up, as usual, it's going to sew frontwards. Okay, this is your hand wheel. It's how you can make the needle go up and down by hand. You always want to turn the hand wheel towards you. Never back the other way. Pull it towards you. This is the way the mechanism is designed to go. And if you try to go the other way, every now and then you might have to rock it just a little bit if you get hung up or whatever. But for the most part, pull it to you. Now, this hand wheel has an interesting little feature. There is a little ridge right here. If you line that ridge up with this crack here in the plastic so that it's straight up, then your needle is in the perfect up position. All the tension is released from the thread, and that's when it's easiest to remove your fabric. So whenever you get ready to remove your fabric, turn the wheel to you until that ridge is right on top. Next is the accessory compartment. This little part right here comes off. Just slide it this way, and you can store your feet and your extra bobbins and needles and whatever right here in this handy little cart. Now, the other thing is when you remove this, this turns your machine into a free arm machine. So like if you need to do something circular where you need it to come under your machine and feed around the arm, you can take this off and have a free arm machine as well. Okay, now for operations. This is your on-off switch, okay? This is where your presser foot plugs in. So we're just going to plug this right in here, okay? And then when you flick that, your machine comes on. You can see the light come on and go off. Your foot pedal is going to go on the floor. Now, one word about safety, or rather several words. This machine does not have any kind of a sensor under here. So if you stick your finger under this needle and you press on that presser foot, it is going to sew through your finger. No other way about it. So if your finger is anywhere near this, if you are not sewing fabric and your eye is on this, you need to have your foot completely off the presser foot, and you probably need to have the machine off. If you're not sewing, turn the machine off and get your foot away from the presser foot. And remember, it can't just be your foot. If you have a pet walking around, they can accidentally step on the presser foot and bam, there goes your finger. So be very careful, okay? That's the only way to really get hurt with this machine is to stick your finger under here and press the presser foot. Then the needle will go through your finger, okay? Major safety tip right there. Okay, Let's talk about needle replacement now. While we have the machine off, the light is off, and my foot is way away from the foot pedal, even though it's off. Sometimes you need to replace the needle. How often? Usually about once after every major project. Needles are cheap, so I just replace them, you know, at least once a month. Now, when you get ready to replace it, let me see if I can get in here a little bit closer. Okay, you're going to need your little screwdriver, and I always put a little piece of sticky paper or something under here when I change the needle, because when you unscrew it, if it drops down in the hole, it's kind of hard to fish it back out, and you can't operate your machine with it in there. So I let the presser foot down over a piece of paper, that way it won't drop into the hole. Now this little screw here, you're going to turn it towards you until you feel the needle loosen up, and it just comes right out. Now on this needle, on the back of it, it's flat. When you feel the needle, you can feel there's a flat side and the rest of it is round. That flat side goes toward the back. It really won't fit up into the needle holder unless you have it in exactly the right position. So that helps you out. But you just get a new needle and then put it right up in there. And then you tighten that back down. And you're good to go. It's that little screw right there. Loosen it up, take it out, put a new one in, flat side to the back, tighten it back up, okay? And then you can remove your little safety paper there. Okay, let's get into the actual operation of the machine. The first thing you're going to need, and my machine is off, the first thing you're going to need is a bobbin. So, let's take the thread. We're going to put it on the thread spool. Make sure that you're going in the center hole here and not one of these side holes. I have accidentally stuck it in the side hole so many times and that makes a mess. Okay, when you put your thread up here, your thread should be coming off this right hand side towards you. Okay, now to load it in the bobbin track, here's the guide, the little written guide that shows you what to do. I'm going to come around this side, and it's going to go in this silver thread guide. If you can see in there, there's a little piece of wire, a little wire loop in there. You want to pull it just a little bit so it goes into that wire loop. And then we're going to come around the bottom of this round disc and then around the top. You see how it makes a cross there? And that looks just like my picture, doesn't it? So I know I've done it right. Now, take your little plastic bobbin. There's a little hole right here in the bobbin. We're going to need to thread it. So we take the thread. You want to come up in between there, so you're threading from the bottom. I know my fingers are all in the way. You're going to come up from the bottom of that hole so that it comes out the top of your bobbin disc, and then you can just pull it right on through. Okay, we're going to snap it onto the pin over here. Make sure it's good and snug, and then we're going to engage the bobbin mechanism by sliding this over, okay, till it pops. Now, hold your thread up a little bit. You're not pulling on it, you're just keeping it out of the way. Okay, turn the machine on and give it a little gas. And this is how a bobbin is wound. Now, after you go a couple of rounds or a few rounds, you can snip this tail off. And then, now, when it gets full, when this gets full, and it's going to take a minute, it's just going to stop turning. This is going to rub against it, and it's just going to stop it from turning. At that point, you can stop. You do not have to fill your bobbin all the way up. If you're just doing a small project, you're just going to need a little bit of thread, or it's a weird color you don't use very often, you may not want to fill your bobbin all the way up. Wherever you want to stop, you can, but when it gets full, it's full. Don't force it. Okay, if it stops turning, it's full. So I'm going to put a little bit more on here, and then we'll look at how to put it in the bobbin compartment. Okay, so push it this way to disengage. Pull this up, and then take your scissors, or you can go to the side thread cutter. We have a bobbin now. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer up to get it when we're loading it into the bobbin compartment. Okay, I think I have a pretty close-up view. Now, if I can manage to keep my fingers out of the way enough to show you this, we'll be doing good. Okay, you're going to take your bobbin, and you're going to, first of all, we're going to turn the machine off because we are working under the needle. So you're going to drop your bobbin in, okay? Then it's awfully dark. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to turn the light on so you can see it better, but please don't do this. I'm going to do this just so you can see the little slit. There is a little notch right here in this metal guide. You need to pull your thread on top of the guide this way. Then we're going to ease towards and let the thread catch under that notch, okay? Let it catch under, it slides in through that little slit and catches under that metal guide. Now, once you get it there, you're going to head up here to this plastic channel. Let it follow the channel all the way down, and then pull it to your right. There's a little blade you can see in there. When you pull it to the right, it's going to snap that thread off, and your bobbin is fully loaded. Okay? You can grab your plate, snap it back on there, and let's see how to thread the machine. Okay. Let's thread this machine. Now, first of all, it's loaded for doing that bobbin, so we're going to take it off of that because it's not the same track. Now, you do have your thread on the spool correctly. You have the thread coming around the front so that your spool turns in a clockwise motion. And here is our guide for threading. All we're going to do to thread it is come around the back side of this, and then we're going to pop it into that little metal loop. Just give it a little tug and it'll go in there. Now, we're not going to go around this like we did with the bobbin. We're going to come straight down into this channel, okay? Now, at this point, you need to be sure that your presser foot is up. Be sure that your presser foot is up because there's two little tension discs in here, and when the presser foot is down, those discs squeeze together and it's hard to get the thread in there. But when it's up, the discs are apart and your thread will just lay down in it. Okay, so we're following the numbers. There was number 1. Here's number 2 coming down this channel. And then you see down here 3 tells us to loop it around there and come back up. Now, the metal component inside this channel, and you can see it working there, is called the take-up lever. It takes up your thread. It's like a little hook, and you want to lay it in that hook. So you're going to kind of pull to the right as you go in here, then slide over to the left. It's hard to do when you can't see it, so hang on. Okay, there it is. It's best to do this when your little notch is straight up. You can come to the left, to the right. Now, see, we caught it that time, okay? It's in there good. And then we're going down here, okay? Now, let me get a little bit more, a little closer up for this one, okay? I'm having to do all kind of maneuvering for this. Okay, there's a thin little metal guide right here. Now I think we can see better, okay? And once again, I'm going to turn on the light for this demonstration only. Please don't fool with this. Please don't thread your needle with the light on. Okay, there's a little thin metal guide right here. It's got a little point to it. We want to bring it up over that, and sometimes I have to hold it with this other hand. We're going to come out to the side, and that has to just sandwich right in there. Usually you can hear a little pop, but if you just kind of floss it a little bit, floss it back and forth, it will go in there, and you can see that it's caught up in that guide now. Okay, the next thing to do is thread the needle. So let your presser foot down at this point, and let's use the automatic threader. We're going to push it down and then forward. That little hook came right through the hole in the needle. So bring your thread over here under that catch, pull it to the right, make sure it's in front of the needle, and then let that go. All right, now there's a loop, and you can grab it with your fingers and pull it on through the needle. It saves so much time. Okay. Okay, that is bobbin and thread. So, next we're ready to go. Okay, to unthread a machine, you don't want to just yank thread back out this way. All these guides are designed for thread to move through them in a forward motion, and if you continually yank them out the other way, you can wear out some of your guides prematurely. Now, if you do it once or twice, it's not that big a deal. Don't go into a panic. But just, you know, make it a habit when you unthread your machine to snip the thread here and then just pull it straight on through, okay, and discard the piece that's there. It will be fine. Now, let's take the bobbin out, because we're going to do a dry run with no thread in it, so we don't have to worry about that problem. Okay, I've got my light on. Now, let's look at how to turn a corner when you're sewing. These little practice sheets are so cool. Put it under your machine and see where your needle's going to go. This will give you a feel for how the presser foot operates and how to turn a corner. Just give it a little gas. Now, when you run something under your needle, you are guiding it. Don't be snatching it. Okay, just guide it. Whichever way you lead it under that needle, that's how it's going to sew. So just gently pull it one way or another way, trying to keep it right on the line. Now when you come to the end, right there, sometimes when you stop, let me see if I can make it good now, the needle is not in the fabric. When you turn a corner, you need to turn your hand wheel so that the needle is completely in the fabric. Okay, that's going to hold it steady. Then lift your presser foot and turn your fabric. See, the needle was holding it in place. Line it up, let your foot back down. We're going to go again. Okay, now see, my needle is up. If I raise this foot, it's going to stretch the thread and it's going to get all out of whack. So twist your hand wheel till it's down in the needle. Get it lined up again, and you're good to go. Okay, so that's a good practice exercise just to get you going. If you want to try the reverse, you can. Okay. All right. So I think we're ready for everybody to go practice on your machine, and then we'll start looking at some projects. And I'll see you back here next time. Thanks for listening.